Ka pai, o tēnei rā timi I atu ki a koutou. Koutou kua ono mai ki tēnei o ngā kōrero o te pō. Ngā kōrero e pāna ki tō tātou nei rohe o Ngāti Mutunga. Te kōrero anō rā I roto I te māramataka, ko ki te rā koutou I te wārangi tuatai o taua māramataka, kia mō I o pai ai hea ara te take o tēnei o ngā kōrero. Nō reira, tuatai rā, ka peka atu rā te wakaro ki ngā tini aitua. Rātou mā, ko koutou e kaue, rātou mā, ko mātou e kaue, ka tangihia ka poroporo a kitia. Nō reira, rātou te unga mate ki rātou, o ki rawa mai ki a tātou I te unga ora, e no o matāra nei. I roto I tēnei o ngā kōrero, tēnei o ngā wānanga o te pō. Nō reira, no mai uki mai, ki te ware kōrero o Ngāti Mutunga. So, welcome everyone to our kōrero tonight. We've got a few on, which is great. Today's kōrero is really an extension of the previous session that we had about 3 months ago. So we've decided to run 3 online wānanga specifically to focus on the 2023 calendar. No doubt everybody has a copy of that and is finding it a very useful resource. This year we really wanted to provide more insight, more information around our rohe, our area in terms of Ngāti Mutunga, how we fit, where we're located, some of our places of importance. And we've tried to wrap that up into a taki kōrero. And the first part of the calendar, as you'll see here, is just a brief overview from the board around what the intention was. So it was really a build on from last year's calendar. Calendar last year was around the karakia. This year is around our roinga kōrero. And then we'll move into next year's calendar as well. And the intention of these calendars is not only to give our whānau some fantastic and beautiful, stunning images of our scenery and our coastline, but also now to be able to provide our whānau with some kōrero to help fill your kete. So if you go onto our Facebook page, you can find that on our website. And you'll see within the, sorry, not our Facebook page, our YouTube page. So you'll be able to find that through the media page in our website. If you go there, you'll see where all of the other recordings that we've downloaded into YouTube around our karakia and of course around the first series of wānanga for this year's calendar. So rather than do a wānanga each month, we've decided to do package the wānanga up into 4 monthly. So I'll take us through a brief overview around the pepehatanga kōrero that we discussed at the last wānanga, and then I'll go through the next 4 months and just provide you a bit more of an insight, a bit more of an understanding of the places that the taki kōrero is referring to, and also just some of the things that we're also doing on the whenua. If you have any questions, feel free to put something in the chat or raise your hand. Definitely willing and open to take any questions and have kōrero as we're going through tonight's wānanga. Probably one of the main things just to note in this slide is moia te poi, moia te taiaha. That's quite an important wakatauki, one that came out of our ka punipuni program through Te Reo Taranaki. That effectively refers to always sleep with your poi and always sleep with your taiaha. And the essence of that is really to be prepared. Be prepared for manuhiri, be prepared to do ngāhau and entertain with your poi, but also be prepared to stand and battle if there ever comes a need. So moia te poi, moia te taiaha is really about you as individuals being prepared for the situations that we find ourselves in. No doubt many of us have been onto a marae, been at a hui, where people have looked towards us to be able to perform those cultural roles, whether that's a mi'i or whether that's a karakia. Moia te poi, moia te taiha really means ensure that you're ready for those situations. It doesn't matter whether you do it or not. The whole point is about you being prepared. And really, this is what last year's calendar and this year's calendar is about, is ensuring that you have the tools as our whānau to be prepared when you find yourself in these sorts of situations. I'll just quickly cover off the pepeatanga kōrero that we discussed last time, because these are really important kōrero and ones that we hear quite regularly. So just important for us as a whānau to understand what they mean. This is one that you may see quite regularly with kōrero related to Ngāti Mutunga. So mai tītoki ki te rau te huia, karaputi nei e te ia o waio, te waio me i rau ki te waio kuranui, koia tērā ko te wakararunga taniwa, nōrunga, nōraro. And in essence, what that means is it refers to our most northern and most southern pā sites. So the most northern being Tītoki, and the most southern being Te Rawa Te Huia. Karaputi nei te ia o Waio is then about encompassing the Waio stream to the south of to the south of Te Rawa Te Huia. That's our coastal boundary. And then we further define that by utilising the next statement, the land between Mutungatanga River or Te Wai o Mihiro and Urenui River or Te Wai o Kuranui is also known as a strategic stronghold for our people. And I'll show you a slide as to the reason why that is. But again, this is a really important kōrero for us. This helps locate us in terms of Taranaki and in terms of Aotearoa. And it also mentions two of our key rivers. So while we don't tend to refer to Mutungatanga as the Wai o Mihiro as much anymore, that was the historical name of that awa. And while we don't refer to Urenui River anymore as the Wai o Kuranui, that's still the historical name, the traditional name of that river. So that's how it's been captured in this pepeatanga kōrero. So here we can see where the two stars are. The northern star there is the place or the pā site Tītoki, and the southern site there, or the star, is the Waio River. And this just gives you a bit of an idea as to the extent of our boundaries in terms of Ngāti Mutunga. So we can see that we've got a pretty straight line coming up here up at the north, which is the boundary between Ngāti Mutunga and Ngāti Tama. We then have all of these squiggly lines that follow the east, the inland, and that's our boundary line between Ngāti Maru. And this line here is Waitara River. So I'll go through a bit more of a kōrero as we get into the slides, but we'll focus down the bottom part, because in the first session we went from Tītoki all the way around and then came down to Purangi, down to this point here. But we've got Waitara River that borders us to the east. To the east, we then have Karamoko Stream, and from Karamoko Stream, we then follow the stream all the way up to Waio. Within here, there's a number of different streams that link us through, but there's a key point that I'll talk about tonight that we use as our reference point, and then from there, effectively taking us straight to the coastline. So that's our boundaries, and that's what borders our particular boundaries in terms of our neighbours. Ngāti Tanga to the north, Ngāti Maru to the east, and Te Atiawa to the south. Here we have Te Rawa Te Huia, so this is our southernmost pā. Many would already be familiar with where this site is, but if you're coming north and travelling towards Waitara, we pass Ornidal Campground, that's just over here. So we drop down, cross the bridge, pass Ornidal Campground, and then come up. And as we're doing that, we pass the old factory. Still going towards Waitara. Once we pass the old factory and go past it, we then see Te Rawatahuia. So if you haven't seen that before, just keep an eye out to the right as you're traveling towards Waitara, and you'll be able to see that. Once you see it, you'll always it will always stand out for you. But a very significant pass site for us in terms of Ngāti Mutunga. And to the north, we then have over here is Tituki Pa. For those who travel to, if you ever travel to Pokearu Marae in Ngāti Kama, you have to travel past Tituki Pa. And it's a big forest block there. You can't see a lot of remnants of the pa site from the roadside. It's quite likely that if you did go for a walk inside under the canopy that you may see something, but this is where we know that Tituki Pa is located. In addition to Tituki Pa, we also referred to Papatiki Stream. So here we have Papatiki Stream, and Papatiki Stream comes through here and sort of borders Tituki. So just mentioning those because those give a bit more insight into our pepehatanga kōrero. Mai tituki, sorry, that should be Tituki Pa, not Titoko. Mai tituki ki te Rawatahuia, karapoti nei e te ia o Waio. There's just another one that I want to share with everyone tonight, and it's one that you see on our logo. And one that you may have seen in some of our documentation, such as settlement documentation. You may have heard it in Waiata. But there's two particular wakawai that we use. So in Taranaki, wakawai or whakawai is used as another word to explain a saying, similar to a wakatoki. So these wakawai are what we use for us in Ngāti Mutunga to demonstrate connection to the maunga and demonstrate connection to each other. So the first one is e kore e mimiti te puna kurupupu. Quite a well-known saying, but this saying here connects us to the maunga. As do our ore at Urenui Pa. So of course we have Te Tito Ea as our ore kai, as our dining room, and that connects us to the maunga as well. Because as we know, the maunga is also referred to as the maunga tito here. E kore e mimiti te puna kurupupu. You do hear different variations of this, they're all referring to the same thing. So for example, in the Taranaki Pātere, there's a reference to koe tuki tuki tia e te poaka, ka mautonu tana mana Māori, tana mana motu ake. And that's in reference to this saying around the puna kurupupu. So effectively, all it's saying is mimiti is to dry. So e kore e mimiti means will never run dry, will never be dry. Puna kurupupu. So puna to mean spring. Kurupupu is bubbling. So if you think of a boiling pot of water and you see the bubbling of the water, that's the kurupupu. So it's the continual bubbling. And what that's referring to, of course, is the springs that are on our maunga. That those springs will never dry up. There's also other references to it in terms of mana, and mana motuhake for us as people. That even though our lands were confiscated, even though we were colonized, our Māoritanga still remains within us. It's still something that's there for us. And the other wakawai or pepeatanga kōrero that we hear is uria te tangata, uria te kaupapa, uria ngā taonga tukuiru. Those who were part of our Wānanga last year and who have seen the karakia in last year's calendar will know that the first one in January was around Uria or Whiria. And that is a well-known karakia. And the words from that karakia have been applied to provide us with a wakawai or a statement of belonging. So effectively, Uria is to bind, to bring together. So bind together the people, so Uria te tangata, bind together the purpose, Uria te kaupapa, and bind together ngā taonga tuku iho, or the gifts left by our ancestors. And really, that's our aspirational kōrero, that's our call to action as to how we work together, how we move together as a people. So being able to move together as one, being able to be united on our kaupapa, and also ensuring that those taonga that were left by our tūpuna are being looked after. So that's our role as kaitiaki. So these are just images around the types of puna that we see on the maunga. So this puna here is the rere o Kāpuni, the waterfall at Kāpuni, quite a well-known waterfall. And this one here it was previously known as Bell's Falls, but of course with Te Pūtake or Te Ruruku Pūtake Rongo, it will now be changed to Te Rere o Tahurangi. So this is on the coastal side, facing, probably facing towards Pariaka, just to give people a general sense of direction. So it's on that side of the maunga. Rere o Kāpuni is probably more on the Stratford side of the maunga. But it just gives you an indication as to what we're referring to when we talk about the different puna. Because there's a number of waterfalls, there's a number of springs that sit upon our maunga. And of course, we liken ourselves to them. We liken ourselves to these springs that will never dry up, just like our Māoritanga will never dry up. Our Ngāti Mutungatanga will never dry up. It will continue to bubble forth, it will continue to grow, it will continue to exist. And just Uria or Whiria. So Uria you may hear as binding, as I used. Plaiting, so plaiting is also a word for uri, and also weaving is also a word for uri. But as we can see, the overall concept is really about bringing us together, bringing different threads together, bringing different whānau, because we all know that we belong to our own individual whānau, but bringing each of those whānau together to ensure that we have shared aspirations, common aspirations, shared visions for what it is that we want to achieve and how it is that we want to look after those taonga that were left for us by our tūpuna. And in terms of some of those taonga, I'll talk a little bit more about those as we move through tonight's kōrero. Just showing this here just to demonstrate the extent of our pā sites. And you found this within most iwi. We tended to build pā sites closer to our food sources. So of course we have a huge concentration of those sites along our coastline and not as many sites inland. It doesn't mean that our people didn't move into these inner reaches of our rohe. It just means that there weren't permanent settlements as much as there were on the coastline. But it also gives us an insight as to why we use the words te wakararunga taniwa nōrunga nōraro. So the disruptors or disruptors of taniwha. So if I bring this one back up, so I'll just let this one in. So te wai o mihirau ki te wai o kuranui, ko ia tērā ko te wakararunga taniwa nōrunga nōraro. So disruptors of war parties, and it's really because of the strategic strongholds that we had. Our tūpuna were quite prolific pā builders, and we see that in in maps like this, where there's a number of sites, a number of past sites. When we look at Urenui River, so right in here, we can see that there's a heap of past sites coming all the way through. And that's why it was called a strategic stronghold, is in that it would be quite difficult for any war party to try and get through Urenui with the amount of past sites that there were around the river. We also see quite a population of past sites along Ōnairo, and as the Wakawai mentions, we also see it up here at Mimitongi Atua. So I just thought that this was a useful image just to demonstrate how extensive our past sites were, and the ingenuity, the innovation of our tupuna to be able to build so many past sites. Those who are aware, of course, will know that this is on our website. It just outlines our different hapu within the iwi, from north working our way through south. And in terms of the locations, they're also described as follows. So our northern hapu, Ngāti Okiokinga in the Waiti area, Te Kerewai, a well-known hapu, heard throughout a number of different narratives as you move down south as well into Wellington and then across to Chatham Islands. So they occupied the Mimi area, Ngāti Aurutu, the Okoki area, Ngāti Inetii, the Waira Urenui area. So Inetii, of course, being quite an important tupuna for us. So the parent of Rerehua, who was the mother of Mutunga. So Hinetui is the grandmother of our eponymous ancestor, Mutunga. Tangata, so this is in the Ōnairo area, as well as Ngāti Kura, Ngāti Uenuku, and Ngāti Tupatwenua. So they all occupied that Urenui area. So again, we can see where they are located in relation to our other apu. So I mentioned that because as we go through these, the calendar slides, you'll see reference to these names, and more so that you know why those names are being used. Okay, so let's have a look at our first one. So Haratua, which is May. I've got slides after this one as well that helps give a bit more of an insight into the kōrero, but first I'll give the kōrero and then I'll provide some insight into the words. Ka pipi ake te wai, ka puaki ki te ngā ere ere o Paui atua. Tū tauiti atu e te pau tauito, tū tata mai e te pau tauira, te pau e tū toa ana mo te taiao. Koia ko te tongi rāu iti o ngā iwi e rua, ko Ngāti Mutunga, rāua ko Ngāti Maru Aranu. So we can see our red dot here on the map, and this kōrero here provides some expression for us in this space here. So pipi, those who have looked at some of the kupu, pipi is like to flow, to forward. So if we think of water, water coming out, that's the image that was seen when we think of ka pipi ake te wai. It's about water flowing or gushing forward. Ka puaki ki te ngā ere ere o Paui atua. Puaki in this context is in reference to where the water is going. So the water flows, it gushes forth, and it then goes into Paui atua. Paui atua being a big forest block. So I'll show you on the next slides where that's actually located. And ngā ere ere is really just the reference to ngāhere. So using the duplicate there in terms of ere ere, just to indicate that it's a bigger ngāere than a normal ngāere that you would see. So this here is effectively Pōwe Atoa, right here. So if I bring out topo map, okay, so we can see where we are. We've got Urenui here, Waitara over here, Pukearu here up here. So Pōwe Atoa is, oh, here we go. Cool. So Pōwe Atoa is right in here. So this big forest block here. So again, if I come out, we can see where Urenui is, Kaipikari, Okoki, and then this big block in here is Pōwe Atoa. Upright. I don't think I was sharing. Could you guys, can you guys see the topo map that I'm filming? Okay, I'll take us back to our I'm going to be jumping between screens a little bit. And it's more so that while this is a good picture to get an understanding of the size, it doesn't provide you with the location. So when I jump into topo map, you can then just get a better indication as to where this is located. So that's Ngā Ere or Pōwe Atoa. This next section really just does a little bit of a play on words in terms of Pōwe Atoa. So the use of the word pō, the use of the word toa within a, what would you call it? Within a rārangi kōrero, within a rerenga kōrero. So tū tawiti atu e te pō tawito. Probably the main thing within this is that we have pō tawito and pō tauira. So those who are familiar with these two terms will know that they're all about exemplars, traditional knowledge. So if we use tauira as the example, tauira, most of us use tauira now as student, but it's also used as an example, also used as a role model, and also used as exemplars. So those people who provide us, who we see as key role models, influences within our communities. So that's what pō tauira is in reference to, is who are our key role models that we associate leadership with, that we associate greatness with. And pō tauito is more around, so tauito is in reference to the ancient knowledge. So it's more someone who's experienced, someone who's knowledgeable. A mātanga is another word that we would use, but it just acknowledges those who have the knowledge and acknowledges those who we see as role models. So the way I'm using that, or the way we're using that within this kōrero, is that distantly from us stands the pillar of ancient knowledge, because it's something that we're wanting to attain. Standing close to us is the pillar of exemplars, the pillar of role models that, and as we know, those are the people that we see within our communities, within our whānau, that provide a really good pathway for our rangatahi, for our tamariki, but also for us. So those who help us with their leadership, to get to our aspirational place that we want to be in terms of pou takwito. So that's why it's tū takwiti atu te pou takwito. So standing distantly is our pillar of knowledge, our pillar of aspirational achievement, and standing close to us is our pillar of exemplars for us to follow. Te pou e tū toa ana mo te taiao. And then between that is the pou that stands strong for the environment. So again, that's our aspiration about being kaitiaki, to ensure that we're being good kaitiaki within our lands and on our inua, and within these particular areas that are really important for us. Koia ko te tungi rāwiti. People will be familiar with words like rāwiti in terms of direction. So we have raki, of course, north, tinga for south, rāwiti for east, and uru for west. So rāwiti is just in reference to that easterly direction. Tingi may not be a familiar word for everybody, but it's one that we use quite often here in Taranaki to explain the word boundary, or a point between two groups. So all that's referring to is the eastern boundary is what the eastern boundary between our two iwi. So what we've just explained up here is the eastern boundary between our two iwi, and we can see it here in this image. So we're talking about Pouhi Atua, eastern boundary between Ngāti Mutunga and Ngāti Maru. And that's for that same. So that is the easterly boundary for the two iwi, Ngāti Mutunga and Ngāti Maru Oranui. So that's a bit of an insight into the kōrero. We can see where Pouhi Atua Forest is located. In our rohe, we have 3 pretty big forest blocks that came back as statutory acknowledgement areas in the settlement. So we have Pouhi Atua, which is here. We have Taramoko, which is here. And up here we have, it's the bigger part of it's called Rerekino, but there's also a segment in here that we call Moki, because of borders the Moki stream. And within this area here and this area here, we're doing quite a bit of activity. And I'll talk about that a bit further in our next slides, because it's quite interesting just to understand the types of environmental activities that we are doing as a rohe and as a iwi. But in terms of our settlement, these were there was about 11 statutory areas that were returned back to us. And the information is available on our settlement documentation, which is online, but it's useful to understand that these are protected under our statutory areas, and it means that TOC, or Department of Conservation, has to consult with us with any conservation strategies or plans in relation to these 3 areas, or if there's any construction, any structures, signs or tracks, such as the like. Again, Department of Conservation needs to consult with us, needs to engage with us. We need to have the conversation to ensure that our aspirations, our views are taken into consideration before anything's done on these important pieces of inua for us. So again, we can see Pouhi Atua here. Overall, it's between 3,000 to 4,000 hectare. As we can see, it looks like very, very steep country. There's a bit of pest control activity happening in here, and it's been done by the East Taranaki Environment Collective, with support from both Ngāti Maru and Ngāti Mutunga. And they're doing all of the pest control within this space. The main pests that they're catching in here, or that they're protecting against, of course, are the main culprits, possums, rats, mustelids, and goats. And the intent is to provide a much better sanctuary, a much better area for the revival, revitalization of some of our native species, such as kiwi, kōkako, even peka or bats. So this is some of the work that they've been doing. Kiwi work has been quite a big part of the mahi that Ngāti Mutunga have been doing with our collaborative entity. So we've collaborated with Ngāti Tama and Ngāti Maru, so there's a tripartite collaboration to develop an entity that will focus on our taiao, and in particular some of our key areas and the pest control, to ensure that we have an opportunity to be able to train up our people for these roles and to have our people on the ground here get a better understanding of place, walk on the whenua. Those are all really important aspirations for us. I hope that was useful just in terms of the May kōrero, and that you find these images useful as well, just to provide a bit of an insight as to where it is that we're referring to. Yes, that's correct, Waiani. So there's also the Waitarua referred to as Te Awaroa. That's my understanding, and that's what, when I say that's my understanding, it's something that's come through the Ngāti Maru settlement. So it's what Ngāti Maru identified, and that's what they're also referring to Waitara River as Te Awaroa. So into June, pipiri. So again, I'll go through the taki and then go through the understanding, and I've got some slides to support the kōrero. Ka pai, peka atu rā ki te manga o Taramoko. Aia ngā taa o te manga e karaputia nei e te ngāere o Taramoko. Ere a te tara ki te taupoto, ere a te tara ki te tauroa, kimi ia ki te kai omu. No roto a Taramoko i a Ngāti Uanuku rau ko Ngāti Kura, ki reira ko ngā mātāpuna o ho tātou muriwai ko urenui ko o Nairo. So peka atu, so peka, those who are familiar with the different parts of the tree will know that peka is a branch. So it's effectively using that terminology literally. So branching out. Peka atu. It's a common term that you hear when someone says that they're going to drop into a place, or that they're going to drop into your place. Oh, ka peka atu ki tō kāinga. I'll branch out to your place soon. So peka is just the way to describe that. So to then branch out to the stream of Taramoko. So again, if we look at the bottom part of the map, we can see what the red dot is. This bottom border here, this, what would you call it, southeasterly? The southeasterly border here is Taramoko Stream. So that's te manga o Taramoko. So manga being stream. So that's what it's referring to. So peka atu, so we just talked about this part. So now we're saying peka atu ki te manga o Taramoko. We then branch out through the stream of Taramoko. Aia, so to follow, to pursue. Aia ngā taata o te manga. So to then follow the taata, so the of course being the sides of the stream, the sides of the river. So follow the river bank, the stream bank. E karaputia nei e te ngāere that encompasses the ngāhere or the forest of Taramoko. So effectively saying we're following the stream, the river bank or the stream bank that occupies this part of Taramoko forest. Herea te tara ki te taupoto. So again, this middle part here is a bit of a play on words of taramoko. So taramoko being, well, that's the name of the stream. Taramoko is also the name of this big forest block here. So just trying to do a bit of a play on these words, taramoko. So herea te tara ki te taupoto. So the imagery here is birding, so is catching birds. So if we think how our tupuna caught birds, they caught them with the spears. And of course that was one form of kai that was part of our well-being, that was part of our survival. So herea, of course, bind to tie to. So tie the tara to the short spear. So tara being the sharp point. Tie the tara with the sharp point to the long spear. Himi hia te kai o mua. To then find the traditional kai that our tupuna used to eat. So while we don't eat kērero or kukupa anymore, it just gives that reference to our contemporary and our traditional contexts. No rotoa taramoko, within taramoko, within this area here, is our apu, Ngāti Uenuku, and Ngāti Kura. And of course, within here as well, you may have seen it in the other image, is our water sources, so the headwaters. The headwaters of Urenui and Onairo. So Mātāpuna mean the headwaters, and Muriwai is a taranaki kupu. You probably tend to hear it more around the coast than anywhere, but a taranaki kupu for river, Muriwai. So here we have taramoko, here we have Pouiatoas, so you can see where they are in relation to each other. And down here, this is the road here. The road follows Taramoko stream. So that's all that's indicating, is that the stream comes around through here. And then from the Waitara River on this side, we follow Taramoko stream back to the Waitara River. So if I bring this up, we can see the Waitara River here, all the way through. We're following the Waitara River. And we then follow Taramoko stream, and then we connect back onto the Waitara River. So this is the Waitara River here. And that's where we can see it, Waitara River. So we come out from Taramoko stream to this part of Waitara River, then we make our way up, so we get to Mākara stream. So here's Mākara stream. Mākara stream comes to about here. And from there that we then start to branch upwards towards the coastline. Probably an interesting part within this is, as I mentioned, with our tripartite entity for Ngāti Maru, Ngāti Tame, Ngāti Mutunga, we've had a group of people who have been doing pest control, track cutting, track management for us within our key areas, and Taramoko has been one of those areas, as well as Kiwi call surveys. And this here just gives a bit of an overview around some of the stuff that we do. So we've got some of the guys that were with Te Kohanga Ahuru, and this is them going out to training around monitoring kiwi through transmitters. So here we can see one of the transmitters, or two of them, to be able to find the kiwi. So once the kiwi were caught, they were then, a transmitter was located on them, then they used, sorry, not transmitters, but what would you call those, aerials, use the aerials to then find the transmitters that were located on the kiwis. And that was part of a large kiwi monitoring program that Ngāti Mutunga had been a part of. Part of that training as well has been around handling kiwis. So you can see how much joy and happiness people get just from interacting and engaging with a kiwi. It does take a bit of effort to get into the bush and find them. But once you do find them and once you get into their burrows and are able to get one out, it's quite an experience to be able to hold a kiwi and then to assist with the monitoring exercises around weight and measurements, gender. But this is all part of a bigger program of work of trying to restore our populations of kiwi within our forest areas for Ngāti Mutunga, Ngāti Maru and Ngāti Tama. So part of this has been collecting the kiwi eggs safely and carefully, and then those kiwi eggs are driven up by one of the team up to Maunga Tautari, to the creche up there, and then they're looked after there at the creche at Maunga Tautari. They're hatched, they're then reared to a size where they can at least defend themselves, and then from there they're then reintroduced back into the population. Part of this exercise as well, so you may have seen some news footage about kiwi that were taken down to Pipitea Marae in Wellington. This was part of that project. So we had some of our money that went down there to support our Taranaki whānau down there to ensure that they were able to repopulate some of their forest areas. But what we're finding is that there are definitely populations of kiwi in Ngāti Mutunga area, and in particular in those three forest blocks that I showed you. The monitoring has its own challenges in terms of accuracy of data, but we do know that there are some breeding pairs up in these forest blocks, and also that the population is probably more of an aging population than a younger population. So we need to find ways to be able to reinvigorate and reintroduce more of those younger species back into these places, so that we have a few generations of kiwi that can continue to repopulate these places for us, or these places of importance for us, sorry. The purpose of this slide really was just to demonstrate where the headwaters of these rivers were. So we can see that the Ornidal River comes into here, into Taramoko. We can see that where the headwaters are, and also in the Urenui River, headwaters come into Taramoko, and also some of the tributaries flow into Pauiatoa, which is on this side. So for us, Taramoko is quite an important area in that the headwaters of two of our important tupuna awa are within that catchment. Okay. So into July, so again, I'll take the similar approach. I'll do the taki, go through the kōrero, and then take you guys through the slides. Ka pai. Rere kaua tūrā ki te tā ui o aka te tonga, kei Wānanga nui o Ngāti Mutunga rāua ko te atiawa, ko te taa o uta o Waitarawa. Wā e te au o te uru, te au aka marumaru i te marangai, hu mau i te au paauki o te manga o Taramoko me te awa o Waitara. Aere ki te tai ki te tūtakitanga o te awa o Waitara me te manga o Mākara, kātai ka anga atu rā ki te kūreitanga o ngā mātua tūpuna. So rere, of course, is just about direction, movement. Uhi probably isn't a familiar word to many. But uhi, so those who are familiar with chisels will know that chisels each have a name, and one of those chisels is called a uhi. Uhi was used as well for tāmoko, and the other part of the word is tā. So if we consider tāngia is to write, tāngia is to draw. We also see tā in terms of tāmoko. So tā uhi is as if we had a chisel and we're tapping that chisel to create a line. And the line that we're creating is the boundary between our two iwi, which is Ngāti Mutunga and Te Awa. So that's all that's referring to. We then move to the Wakatetunga, being south. We then move to the southern boundary, tā uhi, between Kei Wānanga, between Ngāti Mutunga and Te Awa, ko te taha o uta, so which is the inland side of Waitara Awa. And that's just referring to that point right there. So as I mentioned, when we come off Taramoko, and then from Taramoko stream, we join back into Waitara Awa. So that's all that's saying. Ko te taha o uta o Waitara Awa. So the most inland point, we then connect back into Waitara Awa. Whai te hau o te uru, so we then follow the winds of the west. Te hau waka maru I te marangai. Marangai may not be a familiar word to many. It's a directional word. You do hear marangai as a storm over in the east coast, a storm that comes off the ocean, and it's a real hard storm, just like how we have southerlies and westerlies here. But as the marangai comes across the land, it's not as strong when it hits us in Ngāti Mutunga. So that's all that's referring to, is that the hau that then protects us from the marangai, from the easterly winds. Pū mau I te hau pāhuki. To then take a hold of the winds of, so we saw pāhuki before. Pāhuki is a word for boundary. Here we've seen two different words that we're using for boundary. So one being tā uhi, and the image there, as I mentioned, is the chisel that's cutting a line. And the line that the chisel's cutting is the boundary. And pāhuki is another word for boundary. So to then hold fast to the winds of connection. So while it's boundary, it refers to how we connect. There's two iwi. Connection of the stream of Taramoko and the river of Waitara. So again, it's just expressing what I mentioned, that we then emerge from Taramoko stream and then into the Waitara River. And from the Waitara River, haere ki tai, we then move towards the coast. So haere ki tai. Haere ki tai ki te tūtakitanga o te awa o Waitara me te manga o Mākara. We then go towards the coast to the point where the meeting of the Waitara River and Mākara stream is. And from there, we then strike out to the kūreitanga of our ancestors. Okay, so this is just a blown up view of what I was referring to. So here we can see Taramoko stream coming through, and then it comes out at Waitara River here, right there. Then we follow Waitara River for a period of time, not that far, to this point. So here is Mākara stream coming through, and there is the meeting point. So in that kōrero, here, whare ki taki te tūtakitanga o te awa o Waitara me te manga o Mākara. So the meeting point, we then move along Waitara awa to the meeting point, te tūtakitanga o te awa o Waitara me te manga o Mākara. And from there, we then get straight up towards the coastline. Kūrei. So you'll see this in the next slide as well. I just wanted to give a bit of an explanation around kūrei. It's not a commonly used word. Those who know the Taranaki Pātiri will be familiar with this word. It's in the first verse. So, kauri taku aro ki te tai au wā uru kūrei tangara o aku tini waka. So the kūreitanga of my many waka. So kūreitanga is effectively a promontory, and a nose is one of the best ways to explain it. So the profile of the nose. So that's the kūreitanga. And for Taranaki, we also see a similar type of promontory. So for us, we call that a kūreitanga for that reason. So the kūreitanga is in relation to the shape. You may also hear it as a kūraitanga. Kūrai is similar to the rai, the forehead, and it's in relation to the cliff faces that we have, the many cliff faces that we have around our coastline, around our entire coastline. So especially up north, we have a lot of high cliffs, and of course Parinini is a fantastic example of that. And also down south, we have really high cliffs down south. So the kūraitanga refers to that. But just to give you guys a bit of an insight as to why those words were used. But it's quite a useful saying. It's one that I use quite a lot when I welcome people. No mai ara mai ki te kūreitanga o ngā mātua tūpuna. Come, welcome to this this place of our ancestors. Kapai. So again, we can see that we'll follow Taramoko stream back onto Waitara Awa, and from the meeting point of Mākara stream in Waitara, we then strike up. And then that's what this one effectively talks about. So this is August for this month. So as we can see, we've come from here. So we've followed Taramoko across to Waitara River. We've then followed Waitara River up for a little bit to get to Mākara. And from Mākara, we then strike straight forward to this point, to Waio. So again, I'll use the same approach. I'll go through the taki, and then the translation, and then go into the slides. Kapai. Waia te au o ngā manga ko poke weka, ko pau tōtara, ko poke mai. Haurea ngā kōpua o te manga o manga ewa, ruku ia ngā kōpiko o te manga o waiau, hu ia ake te pūwaa o waiau ki ta ara tā pokopoko a tawaki, ki te kūreitanga o ngā tini waka. So aia, or whai, is to follow, to pursue. Au may not be a familiar word to many. I mean, we hear au as a personal pronoun, mean me, but in this context, au is in relation to the current. So the current of the water and the current of the stream, and the stream in particular is the stream here, although we do pass a number of streams. So follow the current of the waters, and the waters of Pukeweka, of Pautōtara, and Puke Mai. Kauria may not be a familiar word to many, but it's just the passive form of koko. So koko is the key word, to swim, and kauria is just its passive form. So we then swim ngā kōpua. So kōpua are like deep holes, swimming holes in the river and the streams. So swim the deep holes of the stream of Mangahewa, So that's the string. Ruku hia. So again, it's a passive word, but the core word is ruku. We'll be familiar with ruku in terms of ruku mā taitai, ruku kaimoana. So mā taitai being more of a taranaki word for seafood, but to dive. So ruku hia ngā kōpiko, to then dive the many bends of the stream of Waio, and this is Waio stream. Puia ake te pua'a, so puia, the image that always comes to my mind when I see that word is a geyser. So puia, something that springs out, something that blows out. So what we're effectively saying is that we are swimming the deep pools. We are swimming the deep pools of Mangahewa stream. We are diving the bends of the Waio stream, and then we spring forth. So effectively saying, as we get here, we then spring out of the water and then come onto the land. So that's what puia ake te pua'a or Waio then refers to. And in relation to the water then pushes out and pushes out into here. We may know that as the ara tā poko tawaki, so that's one name for the Tasman Sea. So that's why we've used that as the reference. Tawaki is a tupuna who, through the narratives that I've seen, is likened to Tāne to a certain extent, in that he seeks knowledge and then he brings back that knowledge and then he shares it with the people. There was also a narrative around around his wife going missing, and he searched for her across vast landscapes, vast oceans, and the Tasman Sea uses the name Te Arata Pokopoko a Tawaki in remembrance of those instances that he had to travel. So then springs forth, ushers out to the Tasman Sea, to the kūreitanga o ngā tini waka, to then the promontory of Taranaki, or the promontory part of Ngāti Mutunga, where our many waka landed. So tini does to mean multitudes of waka. Ka pai. So again, this is really just to demonstrate the names that we've shown. So we can see, now one thing that we'll notice is in our settlement, the names of the streams are as they're noted on here. So the settlement mentions Pukeweka, Pautotara, Pokemai. Topo map and other maps will reference these. So Poukekewa, Pune Tōtara, and Pokemai is the same. But it's just so that you're aware that you may see these names on maps, but in our settlement, we call them so Pukeweka and Pautotara. So instead of Poukekewa or Pukeweka, and instead of Pune Tōtara, it's Pautotara. And then from Pokemai, we then come up to Mangahewa stream, so we can see how far Mangahewa comes up. We then come up to Mangahewa stream. We then come up to meet Waio stream, and then from Waio, we then push out into here, Te Arata Pokopoko a Tawaki. So that's right here. Of course, we have Te Rawa Te Huia here, which is why that statement, that Pepeatanga kōrero that I started off with is quite important. Many just refer to titoki and Te Rawa Te Huia, so mai titoki ki Te Rawa Te Huia. But what that does is that it misses out this section between here. So between Te Roa Te Huia and Waio. That's why we've added on that other piece. Mai tituki ki te wai ki Te Roa Te Huia, kara putia nei te ia o Waio, to then encompass the Waio stream. And this is just a Google Maps view of it, so we can see where Waio stream is located right here. But there's also a number of path sites right in its close vicinity. So there was a path site right here. This path site was named Motuare or Motufare. As we come along the coast, and we can see in here that there's been a whole heap of erosion. And this poor path site continues to get eroded. But we can see that this would have been part of the path site here. If anyone is familiar with this place, you can easily drive down here, down Motukari Place, and then there's a little parking area, and you can just come out onto the beach down here, and you get a really good view of this path site. So this path site is o Tamaringa Pā. And then here, of course, we have Te Roa Te Huia that I showed earlier, and we can just see the maioro of the trench line in here. So three pretty important sites for us in terms of Ngāti Mutunga. So Motuare, o Tamaringa, and Te Roa Te Huia. And of course, this thing creates our southern boundary between us and Te Atiawa. It's a shared area of interest, of course. So the hapu takawainga, the hapu between us and Te Atiawa in here is Ngāti Rahiri. Ngāti Rahiri, of course, has a shared interest with some of our areas as well as Te Atiawa. But for us, this is our southern boundary. Right, so the first Wānanga that we done in April took us through the January, February, March and April kōrero. It's online on our YouTube channel, and you're more than welcome to watch that at your leisure. It provides really good context for the discussion that we've just had today. So today, of course, we went through Haratua, Pipiri, Ongongoi and Here Turi Koka. Went from the bottom part of our rohe, from Waitara River across to Taramoko, and then back up into Waio. So if I'll just bring one of those maps back up. So the first section goes all the way through here, down to here. We've just talked about Pauiatoa. Then me coming into the Taramoko stream, we talked about Taramoko and the meeting points with Mākara and Waitara Awa, and then the different types of streams that we then pass to get up to our southern boundary point of Waio. Hopefully you've found some of the reo useful as well. We've tried to incorporate different kupu just to help broaden your vocabulary, and taranaki kupu as well. So we tried to keep it true to that, and where possible, Ngāti Mutunga kōrero. So hope you have all found that useful today. So a bit over an hour. I think we had an hour and a half just in case there were any pātai. But that probably brings us to the last part of our kōrero. If there's any questions, we can open it up for Q&A. Go back through some of the slides. So again, we'll put this up on our YouTube channel so that you can watch it again or inform the other whānau who would like to watch it. But again, just to ensure that we're really familiar with these pepe atanga kōrero, because they provide locations for us. They help to locate us on the whenua and help to locate us in Aotearoa. So mai tituki ki te rau te huia, so we know where te rau te huia is. I mean, tituki being our northern part. Rapotia nei e te ia o waia. Te waia o mii rau ki te waia o Kuranui, ko ia tērā ko te wakararunga taniwa nō runga nō raro. So really good pepe atanga kōrero to start off with, and then we've got the or to start off a mi'i with, a kōrero with, and then we've got these other two that we also added in today, because we see these within our logo, we see these on our website and some of our material. So e kore mimiti te puna kurupupu, really relates to our connection for Ngāti Mutunga to our maunga, the importance that the maunga has for us. And we liken ourselves to these puna that will never dry up, just like our Ngāti Mutungatanga will never dry up, our mana motuhake will never dry up, will continue to exist, will continue to survive. And then, wiria te tangata, wiria te kaupapa, wiria ngā taonga tuku iho. All about us coming together as a people, coming together in one mind, for common purposes, for common aspirations, and ensuring that we are taking care of those taonga that our tūpuna left behind. Not just our inua, not just our manu or our wai, but also ourselves and our kōrero. So ensuring that we're having opportunities to share that out with you all. Kapai. Doesn't seem to be questions in there, but yeah. E mihi ana kia koutou. Really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. So we've got about 20 people that have joined us tonight, so a good crew. Hopefully you guys have found it really useful. You'll see a few pānui coming out as well, so keep an eye on those. We've got beginner pai kōrero Wānanga that we're going to start up at the pā. We've got poi Wānanga happening, so there's one this weekend, there's one on the 9th of September. We've also got the trip down to Dunedin, so comms have come out for that. So there's a few kaupapa that we've got going on. We've also got the Urunui Pā AGM this Saturday as well. So some really exciting, really fantastic kaupapa that our whānau are being a part of. And it's just a build on the things that we've been doing over the last 2 years around our pai Wānanga, our karanga Wānanga, our poi Wānanga, and being able to build up that level of capacity and capability to help with some of these ceremonial duties that we find ourselves in. Nō reira, te mihi anō rā ki o koutou kua piri mai, kua tata mai ki tēnei kōrero o te po. Ko uru mai anō rā ki roto i tēnei ware, te ware kōrero o Ngāti Mutunga. Me ona kōrero, me ona ia kei te tā o tēnei o ngā ware. Nō reira, tēnei anō rā te mihi atu ki o koutou e ngā kanoi, i ngā uri o Ngāti Mutunga. Ara, ko ia rā ngā kōrero, ko ia rā ngā taonga ko kōrero ia nei e pāna ki tō tātou nei rohe. Nō reira, ko ia rā ko tātou o Ngāti Mutunga e tū kauana ki runga i tōna pe oinua. Ara, kāti akera, ka waku kape akera i tēnei kōrero ki te karakia. Ara, unu ia e te uru tapanui, kia wātea, kia māma, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairui, te aratakatu. Ko ia rā e rongo o kiri ake ki runga, kia wātea, aira, kua wātea, au, pai mārire. Pai mārire ki a koutou, o mārire i te wānau.